It's time to wrap up the Week 12 rankings with the running back position. So let's get into it today. Everybody has, I'm not going to say better stuff to do than fantasy football, but special stuff that only comes around once a year. So I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and a couple of show notes before we get into recapping how I did with my DFS buys, which I will have my Week 12 DFS buys at the end of this video, as well as how I did with my fades and my loves last week. In this video, I will be ranking, my rankings are as if Devon Achane, Aaron Jones, and Kenneth Walker are all out. And then I will also be ranking both Devin Singletary and Dameon Pierce as if Dameon Pierce is playing. So, how did I do last week? Well, I thought that you should pay for Jahmyr Gibbs at $7,000 on DK, and he ended up as the running back 3 in full PPR, so that worked out well. Thought Jerome Ford at $5,200 was a good price. I had him pretty highly ranked, and as the running back 21. Wasn't great. Sorry to anyone who I had suggested to play him over somebody who might have done better. And for the contrarian play, James Cook at $6,100, I think probably worked out in most circumstances. He ended as the running back 10 on the week. I did not think that most people would put him into the lineup, so if you're trying to differentiate yourselves to get the running back 10 out of it, I think that probably worked all right. $6,100, not super cheap, but not too bad. And I did give you a big tournament long shot in Ty Chandler at $4,800. This was prior to knowing that Madison would be returning on the week, but he still finished as the running back 15, so it came together all right. Not that I was as high on Ty Chandler later on in the week as I was earlier in the week. Then for my fadeums, I gave you Saquon Barkley and David Montgomery. In the event of Saquon Barkley, obviously both of them had really good weeks. So in the event of Saquon Barkley, though I do have to defend myself a little bit, I still had him ranked better than the ECR, better than most rankers. So, yeah, there is that. And then for Montgomery, finished as the running back 10. I did move him up in my rankings on my Saturday show, so always, check out my updated rankings or come visit me live. By the way, I will be available here on YouTube live for any start-sit questions or other types of questions as well, and just to hang out. 3 hours prior to the Thanksgiving games kickoff, 2 hours probably prior to Black Friday's kickoff, and then 3 hours on Sunday as always. Now on to my love'ems for the week. How did I do there? Jerome Ford and Ty Chandler were my love'ems once again. Ty Chandler backed off of a little bit as the week went on, but Jerome Ford, Ty Chandler finished as the running back 17 and 16.5 PPR, so, not excellent. I believe I had Jerome Ford ranked higher than that for sure. So, there is the recap. Let's get on to the Week 12 running back rankings. And as you can see, you can now see my rankings, the projections over to the right of them. Over here is the matchup gauge for these. Is essentially what this is. Red is good, blue is bad, white is neutral. And we are going to talk a little bit about the Tier 1 guys this week. But here are my top 14 running backs: Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, Jonathan Taylor, Jahmyr Gibbs, Travis Etienne Jr., Kyren Williams, Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler, DeAndre Swift, Raheem Mostert, Tony Pollard, David Montgomery, Derrick Henry, and Rachaad White to finish up my first tier. These are my must-start guys. Put them in your lineup, have faith in it, hope for the best, is essentially how I feel about all of them. Kyren Williams, going to talk, like I said, a little bit about some of them, normally don't, but Kyren Williams is going up against the Arizona Cardinals. It's the top 3 running back matchup via average fantasy points given up to the running back position. They cut Darrell Henderson, so obviously they're pretty confident in Kyren Williams being able to come back in, have a good amount of workload, I assume, and so I'm trying not to miss out on him in his return. He was excellent before he got injured. Saquon Barkley is going up against New England. It's a plus matchup in regards to the amount of receptions allowed to running backs on a per-game basis. Of course, that is one area where Saquon Barkley can thrive, so I like him yet again this week. Well, I guess I faded him last week, but going to be ranking him pretty quite well here, and I'm probably not going to move him down since that did end up hurting where I had him at the end of the week last week after I did move him down a little ways. Austin Eckler I have at running back 8, and he just hasn't been a dominant fantasy starter so far on the season. Has he been good? Most definitely. He is the EV running back 11 on the season right now, so it's kind of like average fantasy points per game, but it does take into account consistency. But as far as Austin Eckler, he did not look like himself last week against the Green Bay Packers in what should have been a really good matchup. The Ravens are a much better defense than the Packers defense in terms of their run defense, just overall, really. So I'm not overly excited about the upside for Austin Eckler this week. I'd rather take a shot on those guys, of course. Then at running back 12, David Montgomery. I love both Gibbs and Montgomery this week. It's a very good matchup for both of them, of course. However, unfortunately for Montgomery owners, we did not see a return to the pre-injury snap share usage for David Montgomery. It appears, at least for now, that Jahmyr Gibbs is the leader in this backfield. And so ultimately for David Montgomery, a limited amount of touches equals limited upside, which is a bit of a concern. And Derrick Henry going up against the Carolina Panthers, probably the worst run defense in the league. Give him your faith this week. And Rachaad White projects really, really well, as you can see from the projections there. It is technically an excellent matchup against Indianapolis Colts. However, where Rachaad White thrives is in the receiving game, and that is not necessarily an area where the Indianapolis Colts defense is like an easy target. I think they're roughly middle of the road. So it's not like I don't know that this matchup necessarily fits Rachaad White to a T for him to have a big game, but I'm still going to be starting him with confidence. That'll bring us on to my second tier, starting off at running back 15 with Isaiah Pacheco, followed by Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, and Ramondre Stevenson to wrap that tier up at running back 20. We'll talk a little bit about each of them. Isaiah Pacheco just ran his little darn heart out against the Philadelphia defense last week. That is the worst defensive matchup for running backs in the league right now. And Las Vegas is a top 5 friendly running back matchup. So pretty high up on Isaiah Pacheco this week. Should be one of his better weeks. Joe Mixon in at running back 16. Pittsburgh, the defense that he's facing, is a good running back matchup. I expect Cincinnati will have to lean on Joe Mixon going forward rest of the season. This should be a game script against Pittsburgh where he's going to see like 20 plus touches would be my expectation. So I do like the opportunity quite a bit for Joe Mixon this week. Whereas Josh Jacobs, Breece Hall, I think it's pretty clear with these two that I am fading them this week just based on where I have them ranked. Both Jacobs and Breece Hall would be in that first tier for the majority of rankers this week. But I have my concerns. So for Josh Jacobs, it's going to be the same concerns as what I had last week against the Miami Dolphins, going up against Kansas City. Just don't think that they're going to be able to run the ball as much as they would like to. And so that is a big concern. It hurt him last week. I expect it to hurt his chances of having a big game again this week. And then for Breece Hall, I actually have a comparison here between him and Brian Robinson, very close in the projections. Actually, the projections have them identical as far as the low and the high end of this expected range here for them. And for me, it came down to the matchups. Neither one of them is good, but New Orleans is especially bad. And frankly, between the two of them, neither one of them has done enough on the season for me to have unfettered trust in them in these not great matchups and compared to some of the better matchups that I have ahead of them. So just concerns all over the board for these three. And then we get into a spot of brightness with Ramondre Stevenson. Unfortunately, you just can't really rank him ahead of any of those guys. That gets really tough to do. But he is a love of the week for me. It's a great matchup against the New York Giants. If this team, the New England Patriots, has any fight in them, if they care about their coaching staff at all, and maybe they don't, they should come out and be able to wallop on the New York Giants to some extent in this game. And I think that would probably begin with Ramondre Stevenson on the ground. And that's going to bring us to my third tier of running backs. Jerome Ford, I have in at running back 21, followed by Javonte Williams, Zach Charbonnet, Brian Robinson, Gus Edwards, James Conner, and Jalen Warren to wrap this tier up at running back 27. I didn't end up writing anything down about Jerome Ford. Just falls short of being in the tier above this, not by a huge margin. And, he kind of bit me in the butt last week by overranking him. So we'll put him where he probably belongs here at running back 21. Then Javonte Williams, I have at running back 22. Didn't write anything about him either. Going up against Cleveland, it's a really tough matchup. I have a certain amount of faith in Javonte over some of the guys that I have below him, but this is one tier for a reason. You can start Jaylen Warren over any of them, the bottom guy in this tier, and I wouldn't really argue against it. But that's going to bring us on to this next little duo here for Zach Charbonnet, Brian Robinson in the rankings, both going up against San Francisco, Dallas. Not really good matchups there for either of them. I decided I would put Zach Charbonnet in part because San Francisco is a slightly better running back matchup ahead of Brian Robinson, and the projections like him just a touch more as well. I think he is worth taking the shot on over Brian Robinson this week by a little thin margin. Not super confident in it, but what I will say is that if Gibson is out, that would push Brian Robinson up for me. Probably not at the top of this tier, but probably ahead of Javonte Williams, a couple of spots. Then next duo that we'll talk about, Gus Edwards versus James Conner. And James Conner is going up against the Los Angeles Rams. Once again, just like San Francisco, Dallas kind of right in that range as far as how tough of a running back matchup that they have been on the season. It's actually pretty much equal to the toughness level of the Dallas Cowboys matchup. I think it's like a half a point average fantasy point difference between them on a weekly basis. The big difference for me between this group, Zach Charbonnet, Brian Robinson, and James Conner, why he's not up there, maybe even ahead of them, is because he just hasn't been very inspiring as of late, especially compared to a guy like B-Rob. So just drop down in my rankings here a little bit. And then why do I have Gus Edwards ahead of him is because, well, Gus Edwards, as you can see by the floor, this is as low of a floor as I have in my top 30-something running backs that I have ranked on the screen. Of course, there are more running backs ranked. They're all up on the website, www.theffforge.com, for my complete rankings. But out of the running backs that we have in this video, he has tied for the lowest floor with Kareem Hunt, which will also make it into my next tier. And that's because he's been so heavily touchdown reliant. The thing is, going up against the Los Angeles Chargers in what should be a high-scoring game, it's very easy, once again, to picture Gus Edwards falling into the end zone. So I do like his touchdown upside more than James Conner in this matchup. But if you're looking for a floor, James Conner, a lot of these guys would be safer than Gus Edwards. But we all know what you might be missing out on based on recent history with Gus, which has just been insane. Running back 27 have Jaylen Warren. And first of all, you have to assume that the new player callers will want to lean into the hot hand out of these running backs, and that is going to be Jaylen Warren. They have all the freedom in the world to just kind of make that change, in my opinion. So I am expecting Jaylen Warren to maybe even have a slight uptick in his workload compared to his season-long average. And second of all, it's not a smash matchup going against the Cincinnati Bengals. However, it is a better matchup than almost everybody else in this tier outside of, I believe, Jerome Ford and maybe Gus Edwards as far as, a running back matchup. I think that there is a decent chance for another big week from Jaylen Warren, and so I love Jaylen Warren this week. I would feel pretty confident in giving him a go if I didn't have at least one other running back that was better than him on my list. Now, let's look at my final tier. From running backs 28 through 35, I have Devin Singletary, James Cook, Alexander Mattison, A.J. Dillon, Najee Harris, Keaton Mitchell, Kareem Hunt, and Ty Chandler ranked. We'll try to fly through these. So, Devin Singletary, as I stated at the start of the show, I am currently projecting as if Dameon Pierce is playing. He did not quite make the cut for this video. I have it projected as a 55-45 split between the two of them in favor of Devin Singletary, which is probably conservative in favor of Dameon Pierce. There's a decent chance that Devin Singletary would be more like a 60-40 split, and Dameon Pierce coming back from injury, maybe it's more like a 65-35 split, and Devin Singletary is essentially getting the workload that he has been getting over the past few weeks. The thing is, at the end of the day, it's not a good matchup going against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but it is a better matchup than James Cook matchup going up against the Eagles, and I would suspect that their usage, Devin Singletary and James Cooks, will probably end up looking pretty similar. That is my expectation. So let's move on down to running back 30 with Alexander Mattison. Despite both himself and Ty Chandler having good weeks last week, quite good weeks, Mattison dominated the snap share, and it's a good matchup going against Chicago, so I have more faith in Alexander Mattison than Ty Chandler. Could even be underranking him by a little ways here. A.J. Dillon have at running back 31. It wasn't a great first go around without Aaron Jones for A.J. Dillon, and I don't know why we should expect anything different. Regardless, A.J. Dillon should have the bulk of the workload. Even when A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones was gone, his workload wasn't incredibly high, but they did lose a couple of running backs, so I do think that there's a chance that maybe it's closer to like 60%. It wasn't even that high while Aaron Jones was gone. So opportunity is king. That is great for A.J. Dillon. Still, going up against the Detroit Lions, it's a really, really tough running back matchup. Not a good one for him, so not overly excited about Dillon this week. Najee Harris I have in at running back 32. And as you can see, he does project quite well still, of course. And he's had a few good weeks coming into this week. There just are a few too many questions surrounding this new Matt Canada-less offense in week 1, going up against Cincinnati, for me to feel ultra confident in 2 of the running backs, and I'm picking Jaylen Warren as my love him, so kind of dropped Najee Harris a little bit down. But if you have Najee Harris, have a certain level of confidence, at least in regards to how he projects, it's pretty well. Then at running back 33, we've got Keaton Mitchell. He's a boomer bust option. That's as good as it gets, and going up against the Los Angeles Chargers is one of those weeks where you could have some faith in starting that boomer bust option and thinking that there's a decent chance that it could come through for you. Kareem Hunt I have in at wide receiver 34, running back 34, and Ty Chandler running back 35. And both of them continue to get work, and they're doing well with the amount of work that they're getting. They're in good matchups, so I would feel comfortable enough playing them. What I do want to say about these final 2 tiers of mine is that it's a deep week for running backs, and the cutoff between Jaylen Warren there, Devin Singletary, it's pretty thin. And there are a couple of big names that were left out of this tier. This final tier here, Khalil Herbert and Chuba Hubbard via the ECR. They would have been in the top 35 running backs. I just don't trust either one of them, both of them have poor matchups. So that is why they did not make the cut. Let's move on to my DFS plays of the week. All right, so for my Thursday slate of games, I ended up just not getting too fancy with it. Jahmyr Gibbs at $6,800 seems like a must-have in that lineup. And for the Sunday slate, I like Isaiah Pacheco, hate when I say it like that, at $6,200 seems to be one of the lower end good deals, and I did not want to curse Ramondre Stevenson too much. So that is it. I once again wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. Hope to see you around tomorrow, Friday, Sunday, any of which, and take care. Peace out.